Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is my Titanfall 2 Master Difficulty Movement walkthrough. This is Effect and Cause, one of the most profound and interesting missions of the entire game. So stick with me as I bunny hop and airstrafe my way through it, and maybe show you some things you didn't know about the majesty that is Titanfall 2. We're starting here with the Devotion. It's got one of those interesting HCOGs on it that actually zooms the sight, which can be a little bit disorientating if you play like I do. But for the purposes of this mission, I don't think it'll be too much of a problem, because we'll probably be swapping out for some kind of shotgun option later on. But in this particular juncture of the story, we're going to be warping between two time periods, and it leads to a lot of interesting gameplay mechanics, and it would have been really fun if this game offered some kind of New Game Plus feature where we could potentially take this time manipulating tool and do it on every level of the campaign. But I can appreciate, of course, this level was designed specifically with it in mind, and thus they would have had to have made two versions of each zone, which would probably have been very expensive, very time consuming, but just food for thought from this player as we jump past the local fauna, the avocracketers or grab things. And you don't have to kill any of the birds or any of the crazy dinosaurs, because for the most, they're not too bad. It's the little shit dog things, they're the ones that'll really give you a hard time. These things are generally quite friendly, and I've never provoked them. You know, I've never poked them with a stick. I know the old adage about poking the bear, waking the sleeping giants and all that, but they just seem like they're trying to do what they do, you know. Up here is a piece of intel, which this game features these kind of hidden Call of Duty-esque computers that give you quite a lot of the backstory of the game, but they can be quite difficult to actually spot because they don't generally stand out from the environment until you get close to them. And because they're only, you know, quite small laptops, it can be a work of art finding them. And there's no kind of push from the developer to make the player want to find them either, because there's no achievements attached to it. There's no, like, you know, I don't think there's any way the game tracks how many you've found. It seems to be kind of obsessed with the pilot helmets, and in my opinion, I think it should be the other way around. I think the collectibles should have been those laptops, because they actually give you something for finding them, rather than just being like, yo dog, I got an achievement, or, you know, I ticked off this arbitrary box. But let's face it, in today's generation of gamers, people need to be incentivized to play games. The games themselves aren't enough anymore. You know, we need these fanfares, these fancy noises, these pieces of crack that poke the addiction strands of our brains so that we can keep doing whatever it is that we're doing. But I've grabbed the R97, a very strong option for up close. This is one of the more dominant SMGs in the multiplayer, but you'll not see too much of it generally because the R201 is so very dominant. But that doesn't mean that it's not good. And it's always fun to use, because it's got 40 bullets and it's got a very high fire rate, so it's really good at suppressing, it's really good at hip fire. It's a pretty strong option, this gun. I especially like it if you're going to be mobile, but at the moment we've got BT doing quite a lot of talking. And these are the parts of the game that I should really remove, but it gives me an opportunity to talk about Titanfall, so... and I say that, and I've already removed a large segment of that particular sequence, as we fall over here into the building after the zipline, and then in here there's going to be a nice little stalker ambush. So the stalkers are an interesting point of contention for me personally, because I don't like this enemy, and I feel like it's a couple of tweaks away from being a lot more interesting than it is. So fundamentally, my biggest issue with them is how much damage they take, and it's one of those weird gripes, and you might not understand what I mean when I say it if you're just new to this channel, or maybe you've only played a little bit of Titanfall and you've not played the multiplayer. Well, in my opinion, the AI in the multiplayer should exist to give players an opportunity to get points so that they can help the team. It should also add to the illusion of a greater battlefield. It adds to the grandeur of this wider scope of the arena. And that should be it. It should be an opportunity for people to get points. It should be an opportunity for players who are having a rough game to shoot something and not get killed. It should not be a legitimate risk, in my opinion. I can understand the arguments for both in this particular discussion. I can understand why you would want them to be lethal. They're worth points. They should actually take effort to kill, right? But I think you can have them be more interesting than just, this thing takes more damage than a fucking Reaper for no other reason than just because. Like, having something that has disproportionately large HP compared to everything else makes it stand out for all the wrong reasons. And when it's infantry, I just don't think it should be the case. Like, I would have stalkers dying one bullet headshots, I would. Like, that would be one of the ways that I would try to fix them. And as it stands, they do die much fire from headshots, but they just absorb so much damage that a lot of the times they're not worth shooting. And in the multiplayer, you can't afford to waste a full clip on one fucking enemy that's not a human, because a human might turn up. And that's where the flow of the game, I think, gets affected by the fact that this enemy is too strong. You start fighting an enemy, if it's a grunt, you shoot a couple of bullets, the grunt is dead. If a human turns up, you stand a pretty good chance of having a good fight with him and maybe winning, maybe losing, depending on who's the better player or what the circumstance is. A Spectre, slightly more resilient, slightly more evasive, but not necessarily so, than the grunt. You stand equal amount opportunity of surviving after a gunfight. If you start firing at a fucking stalker, chances are you'll do just enough damage to cripple it but not kill it, so you don't get any points. And then a human will turn up, damage you, and the stalker will blow up and kill you. Like, it just ruins the flow of the game. In the campaign, it's a lot easier to understand the design choice because, of course, we're playing against the engine. And the stalkers exist to be a slightly tankier infantry-type enemy that pursues you with a close-range weapon and is dangerous from up close. But I feel like it takes away the satisfying nature of the game. And there's definitely tweaks that could be made to their weak points, to how much damage they take on weak points, to various, values. I just get the feeling that they've cranked them just a little bit too high. And I don't mind having an enemy that is strong, but make it the Titans. The Titans are meant to be these resounding equalizers on the battlefield, these major, massive focuses of every war and every skirmish. Don't have it be the little autonomous wanker that takes so many bullets you just stop shooting him out of boredom more than anything else. As we take big damage right now off the armoured AWOL guy, and there's a couple of turrets here. Get used to this moment if you die in the next section. For some reason, the checkpoint here is actually kind of shitty, and you always have to kill those turrets. It's really strange. But the good news is, if you use your mobility and you use your cunning, you can get in this elevator just as the grunts exit it, and you can change time zones, and then you can just get a free ride into the next sequence. It's pretty easy to do. Just be careful if you don't get inside. As you can see, the grunts do a lot of damage. And it's kind of funny too, because if you played this game at launch on the multiplayer side, the grunts did not do the most damage to you. They were just kind of the icing on the cake to get a couple of points when you couldn't find a pilot. Then they tweaked them so that now the grunts are legitimately dangerous. And once again, I think it goes against the central tenet of the game, because how many times have you been having a gunfight with AI and a pilot's been at the back of them and killed you through them, or ran behind you and killed you because you fired your gun and he saw you on the map? It happens a lot, and I don't think that that's the intended flow of the game. I really don't. To me, the AI is kind of there to make it feel more grand and more epic than it is. The humans are there to do battle, because you're playing multiplayer to fight against another brain, not to fight against the computer. There's plenty of modes for that, but they're very specific in nature. And it's that weird thing of, it just kind of, I think it cock-blocks a lot of moments. Like the droid just then, did you see the droid I just shot? That is another creature. I think any kind of enemy that flies, that is really mobile like those things can be, should not take a lot of damage. The virtues of that particular enemy type should be the fact that it's evasive. It should be the fact that it has these opportunities that the things on the land cannot do. And in Frontier Defense, those enemies take a lot of damage. It's kind of insane. And it all leads into an unsatisfying feel to the gunplay. And this is a very satisfying feeling game. So the moment you have these slight moments where you don't feel as powerful as you did, it really pulls you away from it. As I risk burning to death in this particular sequence. And I don't know how I'm alive. I'm blaming the fact that the Mastiff is a projectile weapon. Because if it was hit scan, there is no way in the planets, even if they aligned, that I was alive just then because of that particular individual shooting at me. But, a little bit of luck goes a long way, especially on harder difficulties, especially doing what I'm doing right now, which is being very reckless and trying to do fun stuff with the movement. And the Reapers kind of suffer from the same thing. A Reaper is kind of tanky even when you're in a Titan. Like, unless you're using Scorch to melt it with your firearm thing, your defensive wall thing, unless you're using Ronin's sword or close-range shotgun blasts, the Reapers take maybe 1 or 2 hits more than I feel like they should. I feel like the Reapers should exist to be anti-pilot. But they kind of do a double role, don't they? They kind of exist to be both anti-pilot and anti-Titan, and they do a great job. because they're very dangerous. Their missiles that they fire in those great barrages do a lot of damage to both Titans and pilots. They're very mobile, they have a lot of HP that enables them to survive, and apparently, if Frontier Defense is to be believed, they have the ability to spawn ticks, which I had no idea they could do that, and I think it's exclusive to Frontier Defense, because can you imagine anything worse than dying to AI ticks in the multiplayer? That is the ultimate kick in the balls right there, so it's really nice that Respawn had the cognition to understand that nobody likes dying to ticks, and the only thing worse than dying to ticks is dying to ticks that were generated by somebody that's not a player. Because let's face it, right, competitive multiplayer is 100% about ego. We like to say it's about fun, we like to say it's about, you know, friendship and teamwork and all this other stuff, but there is this fundamental underpinning of ego in everything we do. It's the reason that we're alive, it's the reason that we strive to invent, we strive to progress. All of these things come from a fundamental understanding of our own ego. Some people have a worse one than others, some people can control it better than others, but fundamentally we all have this thing, right? It's what makes us human, it's what makes us interesting too. When you play in multiplayer, you are battling another player's ego. It is you versus him. It's I'm better than you. If I win, you're better than me if you win. You know, the classic line that Blisk says at the beginning in the dropship. And that's of course not true, but there is a underpinning of that is 100% primal and human. And the fans, by the way, the fans do some considerable damage. I didn't even know they could hurt you. So that was an interesting piece of science right there. So when you fight against another human and you die, there is a part of you somewhere, even if you don't feel it anymore, even if you're immune to it, even if you don't care, that kind of goes, oh, I thought I could win that, I thought I could be better than that person and they were better than me. And depending on how hard you take that depends on the type of person you are. But that is the fundamental underpinnings of competitive multiplayer. I want to show that my ego penis is bigger than your ego penis in this e-environment. You know, it's that fundamental dick waving of, you know, my mum is 6 feet tall. Well, my mum's 6 feet too. Well, my mum's got a shotgun. Well, my mum's dead and she's still taller and has a shotgun than all your mums. You know, it's that competitive nature that you get with people, especially men in any environment. You know, who can piss the highest up this urinal? Who cares? You're spraying yourself in the face just to beat some arbitrary other guy next to you. Stop looking at his dick. You know, all the silly shit that you've done as a kid, as an adult, whatever. It all comes from this fundamental ego. So when the computer kills you and it's not even a human, it's the ultimate insult. It's the biggest thing on the planet in that moment because you feel the shame. You feel the shame that you would have felt when you died to a player multiplied tenfold because you didn't even have the majesty of being killed by a human. So the AI ticks, it would literally be all the worst parts of the Bible. So I'm very glad it doesn't exist. But you see how dark the screen was just then between the fades? That was weird. This is good too. Because we have this tool, we can freely move past this entire gunfight and just use movement to get in BT. But BT at the moment is in the middle of a Black video and he's not the Black dudes. So we need to get in there and hopefully settle the score. And you know what I would love to see in this game? I'd love to see like a bonus DLC or a special like seasonal DLC where they gave us the tools from Titanfall 1. Like, can you imagine being able to use Titanfall 1's 40mm or Titanfall 1's chain gun or the arc cannon? It'd be really, really cool. Like, I'd love to see that stuff return to the multiplayer. But I want it to work like it did in the first game, and I think that's where Respawn would inevitably change things and make me sad. Because let's look at the R201 and the R202. I think it's... I don't know the numbers, guys, so if I'm wrong, I apologise. But the carbine in the first game compared to the carbine in the second game. Principally both great weapons. Both the strongest weapons in their respective games. But the way you interact with them in the game is very different. In the first game, the carbine is so accurate with so little recoil, you can snipe from a million years away and do very, very well. In Titanfall 2, the carbine doesn't have the best long-range game. Its mid-range game is kind of good and okay, but it's kind of getting closer to that short range where the gun truly shines, because it's where it's most powerful. But it has egregious auto-aim that's kind of been tweaked but still there, and it's just a really, really good option, and it's a popular option, and it's the first gun you get, so everybody rocks it. Everybody has success with it. It's a strong gun. Titanfall 1, everybody used the carbine because it was amazing at every distance. But the guns themselves are not the same. And when they ported that first gun over to this game, it was literally a palette swap and slightly different model maybe. It had no mechanical differences whatsoever. And I will never understand why anybody wants a camouflage equivalent of a gun. You already have the new R201. Why would you want another one that looks slightly different with one different scope but performs principally the same? Like, to me, it should have performed exactly as it did in the first game. And I can understand that that might be a bad thing because it was so dominant in that first game. Maybe the developers were afraid that everybody was going to use that one gun and that was going to be it. But everybody uses the carbine anyway. And the people not using the carbine are using the alternator. And the people not using the alternator are using the Spitfire. Like, you see the same guns in Titanfall 2 just as much as you saw the same guns in Titanfall 1. Does that mean that there are people that aren't going crazy? No. It just means that, due to the nature of the game, people will gravitate towards whatever is easiest and whatever kills fastest. And I just named the 3 guns that everybody uses, you know? By the way, guys, you don't have to fight any of those Titans there. You can just push like I did and completely skip that sequence. And now we get to go into the frozen space level. And frozen time, sorry. I would love a multiplayer level that looked like this. I appreciate that particulates and all these advanced processing effects might be a little bit difficult to render at, 60 frames per second with a ton of players on it. But that is a level I would love to see. It doesn't have to be in, like, Gangbang Land, the mysterious gravityless zone, the, whatever you want to call this, the Shadow Realm, all that good, the Makio Star place, whatever you want to call it. It would be nice to see this kind of effect in some kind of arena. Because it just looks so good, Maybe have it in a live fire place where it's smaller and there's less players and there's no Titans, so you don't have to worry about, performance problems. But I would love to see that. Anyhow, guys, that was Effect and Cause. Definitely one of the easiest levels in the game, even though it is really fun and really interesting. So I hope you didn't mind that we talked quite a lot of Titanfall 2 multiplayer in that video. But thank you for watching, and you take care now.